What's going on? My name's Robert, and you are watching Southpaw Auto Works. In this video, we'll be replacing the spark plugs on a 2005 Jeep Liberty. Under the hood, we've got the 3.7 liter V6. If you need to order some spark plugs for your Jeep, you can find several options in the resources section down below.
So to change out the spark plugs on this is a V6. This bank, or this side of the engine, the driver's side, everything's easily accessible here. You can get right down to the coils and down to the spark plugs without having to really move a whole lot. This side, however, has all kinds of stuff in the way, but it's fairly easy to move once you know what to do. I'm gonna start by removing this air cleaner duct. Let's get the intake air temp sensor unplugged. In order to get this connector out, you need to slide that piece, this red guy, outward. Then it allows you to squeeze that and pull it off. Got that loose, comes right off. We could disconnect this here. However, you could just loosen the top of the air filter box. Lift and pull towards you. Up and out that comes. I'm gonna pull this air filter out. It's a K&N. I cleaned it not all that long ago, and it's gonna get dirty under here in a second. Next, we'll remove this coolant reservoir because it is in the way of two of the spark plugs. Actually, before I move that, I want to get some slip joint pliers. We're going to pull this coolant hose off. Right here. Back it up a little ways, grab it gently, wiggle, break the seal loose, and then pull this hose off. Disconnect it from here, and then I just tuck this thing right up in here against the firewall, because if it falls over, it will leak coolant. So you want to find a spot that you can kind of tuck it in where it's not going to tip over on you. So back to this reservoir. Got a 10 millimeter nut here and a 10 millimeter nut here. Helps if you pull this dipstick out of the way. Grab the nut. Okay, lift this guy and pull. Let's pick it up and just kind of position it off to the side like so. Now we've got access to all of the cylinders, or all of the coils and spark plugs. And before I start taking anything apart, I want to blow all of this out. Seeing how the throttle body is now exposed, I don't want to get a bunch of dirt in there. So I'm going to take a shop towel, clean one, stuff it in there just to keep debris from flying in there. So like I said before, we want to pull any of this stuff off of the engine. We don't want any debris falling down into the engine, so we need to blow this thing clean. Might as well just leave that in there. The coolant hose has little holders that rest right on the hardware that hold the coils down onto the manifold. So we'll pull two of those off. I'm going to show you how to do one of the spark plugs. Once you know how to do one of them, you know how to do all of them. So we're going to start with this cylinder here with the electrical connector. These things are, I found them to be kind of hard to get off of there. You got to squeeze and wiggle at the same time. That one, of course, came off easy. This thing's been off recently and it's been clean, so it wasn't that difficult to get it off. If yours is a pain like this one was before, I took a flathead screwdriver, pushed down on the part that is designed to compress, push there, and then it freed up my hand to do all the pushing instead of trying to squeeze and push at the same time. It's really awkward. That little trick I found, it made it a lot easier for me. So now the coil is held in place with a 10mm nut. We'll get that pulled off. Set the nut down. And now it's just a matter of wiggling and pulling, and up comes your coil. Now that we've got the coil out, get the long extension and the spark plug socket. This one happens to be 5/8. Rotate it by hand until it drops all the way down, and pop it out. And out it comes.
There are a variety of tools used for measuring spark plug gap. This spark plug gap tool happens to be one of my favorites, as it's got not only feeler blades, but also these wires for checking the spark plug gap. In addition to that, it's also got a tool made for adjusting the gaps, and it's built right into this tool itself. It's pretty convenient, pretty handy little tool. The tools are used to measure the gap located between the electrode tip and the electrode ground. The spark plug gap can be increased or decreased as needed in order to match the spark plug gap specification. To adjust the gap on the spark plug, simply bend the electrode ground up or down to get the desired gap. My particular application calls for a spark plug gap of 40 thousandths of an inch. You can typically find an emissions label under the hood of most vehicles. On this Jeep, it happens to be right above the grill. It happens to have information regarding the spark plugs, the spark plug type, and the gap of the spark plug.
Use a gapping tool to set the gap on your new spark plug. Even if it comes pre-gapped, it's not a bad idea to check it. Super easy, super fast. And then I recommend putting a little bit of anti-seize on the threads, just a little dab. Take your new spark plug, set it back down in the hole. And I like to go backwards. When turning it backwards and pushing down, you'll feel the the spark plug drop, and you'll hear it click. And then now I know I've caught the threads, and I don't run the chance of cross-threading the spark plug into the cylinder head. Although I have heard that a cross thread is better than no thread. Ha ha ha. Okay, I got that tightened all the way by hand. Take our torque wrench, set it to the spec. Just a tip with torque wrenches, if you're not going to use it for a little bit, always a good idea to reset it or put it back down to the lowest setting to help keep it in calibration for longer. Before I put the coil back in, it's not a bad idea to take some dielectric grease, squirt a little bit in the hole here. That'll make for an easier disassembly next time.
The coil pack does have an O-ring on it. Lightly lubricate it.
Drop the coil back in place, wiggle and push. Take our 10mm head nut, put it on, get it started. snug it up, plug in your electrical, and that cylinder's done, and you just rinse and repeat for the rest of it. Alright, so let's pretend that I just redid all of the spark plugs, which I already did previously, but in this video I only showed you how to do the one. But let's say you got all of them done, and now you're ready to put everything back together. I'd start by putting these coolant hose holders back in place. Speaking of coolant, let's get the reservoir back on, and it just goes right over these studs on the firewall. Push it all the way back. Get the nuts started. Take our impact and just gently run them down. Gently run them down. Like I said before, the dipsticks, the head of the handle of the dipstick's right in the way. So I just move it out of the way. Works great. Okay, now that we got that done, let's grab our hose. Try to keep that from falling over. Like I said, it will leak. Sneak it out. Hook it back up to the top of the reservoir. Use some slip joint pliers or whatever you got. Hook that up on top of the throttle body. There is a little bracket to hold the hose. There's another one on this coil and this coil, and you've got that all hooked back up. Now we're ready to put the ductwork for the intake back on. So let's get that rag out of the way. Get that, and then of course we need to grab our air filter and set that back in place. Start at the air filter. Get the top of that cover on, the top of the box, whatever. Latch it down. Then we just work that right on there. It goes on pretty easy. And our clamp here needs to be tightened up. Alright, snug that up. It's on there tight. Don't forget to connect this, your intake air temp sensor. Push it down, and then this red connector. Slide that in. Clear the engine bay of all the tools. And with everything out of the way, we're now ready to fire it up. Alrighty, let's get this thing fired up. And like that, she's alive. Now ready for a road test.
If you found this video helpful, please let me know by hitting that like button. I would love to hear from you. Drop me a line in the comment section down below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe, and do not forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. If you're interested in helping this YouTube channel grow, there are a number of ways that you can get involved. Check out the video description down below for more information. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.